Welcome to the Tumbleweed Podcast, where we discuss an eclectic range of topics, including business, design, Texas culture, and everything in between.
We're two teachers that turned a side hustle into a nationally known apparel brand, and now we work with some of the biggest names in Texas. We strive to never stop exploring and continue to draw inspiration from our adventures.
So drift and explore or raise a glass. We're always ready to hang out and talk about the things that we love. So come roll with us as we drift and explore. Hey, I'm Brian Wysong, co-owner and founder of Tumbleweed TexStyles, and I have Jeb with me.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
And today we are excited to have one of our teammates, a guy that we've known for a long time, with us. We got Brandon Gonzales.
How is it going, guys?
Fantastic.
Going good. No school today. It's a Monday.
I know.
So you go like that.
Monday of a long weekend.
Well, Brandon, I want you to share a little bit. Who are you? Kind of a little bit intro of kind of your background, how you are even associated with Tumbleweed TexStyles.
All right, Brandon Gonzales. I'm currently with Tumbleweed TexStyles. I manage our warehouse as well as I'm the events coordinator. So I know we're going to get into that a lot or some here in a little bit. But I've known you guys for a long time. My first year teaching in Frisco ISD was at Clark Middle School with Jeb. We actually coached together back then.
Back in the day.
And then once Liberty opened, he jumped up there. I went a couple of years later. Since 2009, I've been at Liberty. Coached a multitude of sports. My biggest thing was always I was a football coach until recently. And that's also, I guess, how I met you, Brian, through the coaching world when you were a Red Hawk.
That's right. Once a Red Hawk, always a Red Hawk. All I can go through in my head right now is music. And I wish right now we could just have a song playing. If you had an intro song as you walked out to this podcast, or maybe back when you played high school, what would that song be?
I'm definitely still, child of the 90s, and so it's going to be a lot of that either late 80s, early 90s rock. I mean, AC/DC, some Back in Black, or I don't know, maybe Welcome to the Jungle.
Oh, there you go.
But, coaching, when I was out in the field and whenever I'd hear bands start to play, I always, and still, I dig Seven Nation Army.
Okay.
When that bass line, that drum hits, it's like, okay, we're about to get excited.
Yeah.
That's the White Stripes, right?
Yeah, the White Stripes.
That's a good one.
Well, I just have the tune. Da-da-da-da-da. Right now, mine would be Ain't Nothing But a G Thing, baby, but B Thing, I don't know why. I picture myself rolling up my first car was a 93 Caprice Classic. You probably have no clue what that was, but it's like the old cop cars.
Oh, yeah.
I would literally roll up in that song to school almost every day.
So that's your song?
It would definitely be my song.
Wow.
That's, who sings that?
Snoop and
That's right.
Dre.
That's right.
But if I was having more of before soccer games, I know this guy's a little political right now, so all politics to the side, but Kid Rock, his ba-da-da-ba, bang-da-bang, like that play up, and then it starts rocking and rapping.
Yeah.
I loved listening to that before, at least a soccer or football game.
Yeah. That'll get you pumped.
What would you have going on down there at New Braunfels?
Well, I'm older than you guys, but mine would definitely be some late 80s rap. I'm thinking like LL Cool J, like I'm Bad.
Okay.
Maybe something like that, or like Mama Said Knock You Out.
Don't call it a comeback.
That's right. Or maybe even some Eric B. and Rakim, Paid in Full. Just something, like you said, kind of gets me fired up. That's the kind of stuff that I used to listen to in the pre-games. Now, it's a funny thing, like my coach in basketball, he was a big classic rock guy. So all of our warm-up music in high school, he wouldn't let us do rap. We all wanted to have rap for our warm-ups, but we always had to do classic rock. So it was like Boston, Thin Lizzy, some of that stuff. So
Well, I was at North Crowley, so we pretty much only had rap.
Yeah.
And then our linemen would want the heavy metal. So
Yeah, what linemen dig the heavy metal. Yeah. I know War Pigs was something big, both when I was in high school and when I was coaching. That they'd come out to that, and it just got them going.
Yeah. So we mentioned you mentioned coaching and your background knowing Jeb, and I coached soccer at Liberty, so we probably got connected somewhere. Whatever coach was on duty at some game, that's probably where our paths crossed. But what about teaching? So what what subject, and maybe subject now or then, did you teach? Do you teach? And like, how did you even get into that? Because I know as a coach, sometimes you go start teaching, or you coach, so you happen to teach whatever's available.
Right.
For you, what was that, and how did you get into that subject?
Yeah, so my degree from A&M is actually wildlife biology with specialization in museums.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but when I started teaching, I was a middle school teacher, so you kind of hit all subjects, right? When it came time to move to high school, I took that test to teach all sciences, and biology, I think, is the only science I haven't taught.
Okay.
So for a majority of the time I've been there, it's been physics, but I've also taught earth and space. I've taught integrated physics and chemistry. For the last couple of years, I've been with the online programs, working on accelerated credit with kids, move-ins, trying to catch up on credits needed for Texas. It's a real cool program that specializes in handling each kid. So it's been a much different world, but it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
So I think when we started talking with you coming to come onto the team, help out with events, one of the things I mentioned to Jeb, and he also said as well, like, just how detail-oriented you probably had to be because you were an offensive coordinator, you were a science teacher. How do you feel like the science and all those kind of help play a role within your, being an offensive coach and having to understand the data and all that stuff?
Well, I hate to correct anybody, but it was defensive coordinator.
I'm so sorry. Why did I say offensive?
Which requires even more attention to detail
yeah.
because we have to. A good friend of mine, Coach Swinney, still at Liberty. His quote is, "Offense gets to ask the questions, the defense has to answer them." So it required quite a bit of preparation. And that's my deal. I'm a big list maker.
Yeah.
I have to have something that keeps me aligned. I can plan it out and make a template and then use it over and over and over again. A lot of that might be from my science background of having procedures to do a lab, to write a formal lab report. So that stuck with me from college. My notebooks from either game planning days or lesson plans in the classroom are pretty detailed. I mean, I don't like to leave too much up in the air. I feel like I can go off on a whim and handle things, but it's because I have a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah.
I think that's helped out a ton with our events just because that attention to detail, like planning the things that we're going to need for an event, we've gotten it down to kind of almost a science. And a lot of it's thanks to Brandon because he was able to kind of think like, okay, what do we need for if we do a 10 by 20 booth? What do we need if we need a 10 by 10? What's the crowd going to look like? What shirts are we taking? How many? What's the quantity? So used to when Brian and I would do events on our own, we would just pack like almost everything we had and just take tons of shirts, and then we'd end up just coming home with tons of shirts because we weren't really breaking down the data, or we'd have like too much of something and of like whether it's equipment or all kinds of things. But we've kind of, I think with you, Brandon, been able to make those lists like you were talking about and come across kind of a standard that we follow for a particular event so that we're more organized. So we definitely come to the show ready to go, and it's an easier, quick set up and take down.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about, going back to coaching days, how we'd arrive to the sidelines with our trunks of equipment with, the footballs you needed, the dry erase boards, all the materials you need on the sideline. And so try to do it that way. But yeah, exit is also a big thing. After we've been at an event for 12 hours, or maybe it's day 3, when it's closed, it's time to go.
So these events, people see, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have. I mean, we're at festivals all across Texas, so I'm sure someone's bound to have seen us somewhere with our red tent, and they see the shirts folded, pretty, maybe blown away a little bit here and there. They see our pretty faces trying to sell our product, but they don't know what goes down the hours before the event. I always laugh when someone says, "Oh, do you need 30 minutes to set up?" So tell us kind of what's the process prior to an event on that day, like what we do to get set up for that event.
Yeah, so usually earlier in the week, actually, you and I communicate a lot about, what type of event is it, what shirts are going to be good, right? Is it a barbecue event, music event, whatever it may be. So we pretty good plan on that. I have started where we we've got an electrical box. It's got all of our lights and gadgets in it. And then we've got a hanger box. It's got everything we need to decorate. And then usually Thursday night or Friday night is when we'll go and load the van, try to get it in some sort of order where we can pull it out really quickly. Get to an event. I think all three of us are of the vein of, if they say we can be there at 7 o'clock to start setting up, we're usually there at 6:50.
Yep.
Which I appreciate. So we're usually one of the first groups in, get things unloaded. Oftentimes have to move the van or whatever vehicle we're in far away, so it's good that we get there early to unload. And then we just kind of take in the area. We look at who's next to us, if there's music, where that is, where the food trucks are. We try to plan it out to where we can get the most exposure as people walk by. And then we just set up the tent and get the tablecloths going, and then kind of strow out the shirts at the beginning, and then figure out, okay, let's get these together, and it could be anywhere from a hour to hour and a half process, I guess, to set up.
That's the thing is, like I'm doing an event this coming up weekend. They thought, you got 30 minutes to set up. Like, no, even though it's a small 10 by 10 tent, it still takes. The longest thing is folding those shirts, getting them set up.
Yeah.
And I hate when you're not there because then it means I'm the one having to do that part. But since you've been with Tumbleweed, all right, so we've done some fun stuff, some festivals from Dallas, Murphy, Little Elm, down in Hutto, Georgetown, Tyler. What is there a memory, and this is going to you as well, Jeb, like over the last, since post-COVID, since we've been able to get back out and do events, is there a fondest memory, something that just resonates, us being in the moment?
One of my favorite shows that I've seen is actually one that got cut early. We were out at Little Elm Brewing Crew, and the day was just beautiful, but you could see rolling in from the west. It's like, oh, that's dark, and it kept coming. Shane Smith and the Saints were the big band, the headliner that night, and the third song they sang, they were singing Hurricane appropriately.
Oh, gosh.
And the bottom absolutely fell out of the sky. I mean, the little amphitheater that they have on the lake is probably 2 or 3 feet kind of sunken below the stage. Well, it became a wade pool. There were kids out playing in it. Looked like a splash pad.
Like a slip and slide out there in the mud.
People are diving it kind of into our tent because it started to hail. I was thankful for the nice tents that we have at that deal, but that was just it was just cool. That was something out of the ordinary. I think the fact that the song they were playing, it almost seemed like a movie. But it was cool. Unfortunately, that was the last song they sang.
Right.
Because the rain.
So what happened as a beer fest, right?
Yes.
So what happened to all the beer?
Well, they started trying to get rid of it. And Carrie and I went like 2 years ago, 2 years before that, and the exact same thing happened. Like Cody Canada, he didn't even get to play. He was supposed to play, and it started pouring, and they just called the whole show. And so all the beer vendors have these, they just had cases of beer just sitting there. And so basically it was like, I don't know, like Lord of the Flies kind of. Everybody was just like scurrying around, and those people were just giving out free beer. Were they doing that?
I don't think it was, because it was later in the day maybe than that time.
Yeah.
So there wasn't as much, but I definitely left with more than we came.
They were
with.
trying to get rid of it because a lot of people that work those tents, they're not necessarily affiliated sometimes with the brewery, or if it is, it's just like some random sales guy, and they just want to get out of there too, get their tent down. So they're just giving out 6-packs of stuff. They just want to get out and as quick as someone else. So.
I don't mind adding to the loadout.
Well,
it was wild, but I mean, it was unfortunate that we had to cut our sales short that day because it was going to be a fun day, and we wanted to see Shane Smith and the Saints finish up. But it was kind of as far as memorable stuff, that was definitely a.
Well, that has to be that same night. I was over at Texas Music Revolution.
Yes,
and y'all know I'm a big Charlie Crockett fan.
Right,
and I was extremely bummed because he was playing that night, and there was no way I was going to get to see him because we were going to be taking the tent down, getting out of there. But the same thing, it just unloaded, started raining and pouring, and I had a guy named Garrett, he was a college guy then, and Katie, your former student, Leland, So we're just like, what do we do? Like, I mean, the tent literally just broke in, And so I was like, let's just throw everything into my car and let's rock and roll. So the fire chief allowed me to pull my car in. We just threw everything wet into my car, and we just all soaking wet went into where Charlie Crockett played. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And the best part about it was we had just talked to Shiner, so we became friends with them. And same thing, they had all this beer that they just had to unload. So as we were walking in, they were just handing them all. And of course, Garrett got a few, and he wasn't 21 yet, so he had to hand them over to me. So I was like, oh, darn. But it was a fun memory, but a bummer we didn't get to sell.
Yeah. Looking, I guess if you want to zoom out, kind of bigger picture, it's not a big memory, but something I think is so cool is the relationships that we've made, both with customers and with other businesses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like every time we go somewhere, the interactions are so positive. People are so kind when we're out there and excited that we're there, and just, I mean, we might talk for 10 minutes before they buy something. Now, some people are in and out, right? But there's a lot of people that appreciate the fact that we're there, and they like telling stories. Thinking back to Coke Fest last year, I remember I like to watch when they open the gates, right, at big events. Big Texas Beer Fest, when they open and that first crowd comes in. That kind of gets me, it's at the beginning of a game, right?
Yeah.
But I saw this, it was a family, maybe, mom, dad, either son, daughter, or daughter, boyfriend or something, but the parents and the male go straight to the stage carrying all of their stuff. And the girl, I mean, college-age girl maybe, just beelined straight to us. And she was wearing a shirt that she bought the year before, and she's like, I bought this last year, and the first thing I was doing was coming to see you guys.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
Just kind of hung out with us for a little bit and bought some more. But that's fun to me. I love building relationships.
So what's that? So that vibe, I mean, it's something I can. Hillary, my wife's been a part of a few of our events, but it's been like Mary Main Street. It's never been the fest, so she doesn't get it when I explain how much fun we have.
Yeah.
Kind of explain, because for you being a customer of ours and a friend, of Jeb's prior to Tumbleweed, and getting to experience that Coke Fest, I think it's almost, you can't even put words behind the vibe and atmosphere of people's appreciation for our tent and our booth and our lifestyle, and Koozie King over there handing out free koozies and everything. What's that vibe like, and how different is that, or how surprised were you when you got to experience that for the first time?
Well, the first time I did anything was at Murphy at one. I met both of you guys out there, and the day was gorgeous, and there was lots of food and beer flowing, and so it's a smaller event, but it was really it was fun, just fun and intimate, and you get to know people. But those big fests are, I don't know, it just kind of consumes you, and you get moments where we're so busy in between acts, maybe if it's a multi-act festival, just getting slammed with people coming up to the booth. And then when the acts go on, it thins out a little bit. Maybe somebody kind of hangs around and talks, but it's kind of hard to put into words. I think you just really have to experience it. Just, you feel it.
Right.
You feel it. I don't know.
I mean, for me, I love like talking to people, and like meeting new people and making connections and stuff. And so that's kind of where I get my rush. But then you throw in like some of my favorite music and the food and stuff at these things. It's just, and the weather plays a huge role. When the weather is perfect, and like, it's like, we've had a few events where it's just been like, everything has just come together. Like, the weather was perfect. Yeah. The bands were great. The food was great. The people that we saw, the friends, the people, it was just, we've had a few of those that have been just awesome. Like the Salina, the first Troubadour Fest they did in Salina was just like, you couldn't ask for a better day. It was so fun. And then I think Coke Fest last year was awesome because Robert O'Keefe was playing, and I was so fired up to see him. And then Turnpike Troubadours, it was one of their first shows back, and it was just, and the weather was great. It was a little hot, but I mean, it was just so, I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to explain, but it's just that whole vibe and energy that everyone had. It was just a great experience overall. You
can feel the excitement at them.
Yeah.
And the thing I love is that, so you got other vendors there sometimes that are selling, just trying to make an extra $1. I feel like we're truly a part of the experience. And that's the thing that I've had so much fun with, is when I see, as a branding perspective, looking at branding wise, I feel like Troubadour, Coke Fest, we're as much of a part of that event as anything else. Like like you said, that girl came beeline straight to our booth.
Yeah.
Every year, people like that's their annual tradition is to stop by, buy our newest shirt that year, or buy whatever shirt they grew out of or lost. And,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
so it's fun those that come up and you're like, oh, our 2 o'clock model's here because they're wearing a shirt that they bought the year before. And like, bought that one, and this year I'm getting this one.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's fun to make those connections.
So looking back a little bit, you mentioned coaching. That's one of the things that all three of us have in common. And kind of looking at, now you help run our events team. What were, and maybe all three of us, and I definitely have a long list, but pet peeves as a coach. Was there anything that you remember that just got under your skin when you were coaching?
I've always, and this is just something pounded into my head by both my dad and my grandfather, was just, laziness or not living up to what you could have done. I was actually at a wedding of a former student this past weekend, and one of them came to me and said, "Coach, I just appreciate that you always held us to a high standard."
Yeah.
And that's something I've tried to pass on to my son, is just, hey, I don't know how great we'll ever be at something, but we can be as good as we can be. So as long as a kid always gave me their best, whatever that was, I appreciated it so much. There's people and kids that try to just get by on sheer talent and not really have that work ethic, and that's really a big pet peeve. It's you're not using to the best ability the tools you have. Like what's going on here?
Yeah, for sure.
So that one bothered me.
Yeah, and when we taught and coached in middle school, I think that's an important thing because a lot of those kids haven't kind of really been pushed to their limit. They haven't really been tested or learn that trait of hard work and then how it actually pays off. Because when you're playing pee-wee or whatever it might be, it's the parents and they're kind of all telling you how great you are and that kind of stuff. And then you get into middle school and they actually get real coaches and their parents aren't around and they start to find out that, you do have to put in some work. And the kids that are putting in the work are starting to rise a little bit above them. That was one of my pet peeves, was just dealing with the parents and them telling me how good their kid was before they'd ever even stepped on the field or court. Oh, he was an all-star in FFL, and in 4th and 5th grade, they were the Super Bowl champs, and just hyping him up like he's just going to walk on the field and be the starting quarterback. Well, let's see what happens, first of all. I haven't seen this kid play. I'm hearing it all from you, so that was kind of one of the things that used to kind of irk me, was just the hype that some of these kids – and I felt kind of bad for them because, maybe they didn't quite live up to the hype, or they didn't grow over the summer, and then, all the other kids that weren't as good as them or second string had grown a little bit bigger and gotten a little bit stronger and taller, and I don't know. Well,
I think the parent component's probably my biggest pet peeve. Is club soccer is maybe the worst in my opinion, because a lot of times when it translates from club soccer and high school soccer, I don't know, there's just an entitlement. Like, just because you played club soccer, you think you're great, when that's definitely not the case. You just had enough money to play. Right. But like even this weekend, my son's 3 years old. And it was just like a moment. It was kind of funny to me because I was sat there and it was 4v4, and the coach came to me, or came to Luke and said, "Hey, do you want to play?" And my son's like, "No, I want to sit." And the fire just boiled in me. And because as a coach, if a player did not want to play, I was angry. Like, you should want to play when you're out there.
Right.
And he put this one other kid on there that never wants to play. I was like, okay, go do it. And the kid starts digging a hole.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sitting like, it's so funny because he ended up being the best defensive player of the game. But like, he was sitting there digging this hole. I'm like, God, my son should be out there playing right now. And the other team got the ball, starts dribbling towards their goal to score. And you just look out there, this kid's just digging a hole. And he looks up, he starts like tears in his eyes, like, they're coming at me. Oh, he ran the opposite direction. The ball is going straight to the goal, hits that hole that he was digging, and it bounces out of bounds. And I'm like, that was the best defensive play of the game.
I thought you said he was going to. I thought you were going to say he blocked it with his shovel.
No, he ran the other way.
Oh my!
But my point is, prior to the game, that same parent, what got me was they weren't trying to get him out there to play. They're like, we're just out here to have fun, and that's okay and it's true. But I hate it when parents aren't trying to get the best for their kid. And like you said, always act like maybe their kid is the best on the team. Just that false I don't know, false belief of with their kids at. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, Brandon, I also had kids on my team when I coached that weren't great, but they had the best spirit. And so I found the best place for them. Maybe I was like, hey, okay, your best role is going to be like cheer on the team. Like, let's root the team. Like, and I made sure I found opportunities for them to go out there and play because they found their role on the team.
Oh, yeah. The kids that would jump out on for scout team practice that, it's a senior that maybe they're not going to get in the game, but they just love the sport, so they're going to come out there and give what they can.
Yeah.
The kids that worked hard during the off season.
Yeah.
And that was a big fun time. We used to say all the time during football season or during athletics. The games are the fun part, but the actual football season is probably actually off season.
No doubt.
So that's when a lot of gains are made, and seeing the kids that push themselves, and maybe they did bench 135 and now it's 150. It's still nothing fantastic, but that's great for that kid. That those are fun moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's as far as, I haven't coached in been quite a while. But some of the things that I miss about coaching, were basically kind of those moments, like where just being around the kids in the game planning aspect of it. I love like game planning and like coming up with a strategy or like in game, adjustments and things like, oh, they're running a, cover 2. We're going to be able to do that, just making adjustments on the fly, coming up with a play like in a timeout that's going to work. That's the kind of stuff that I really miss from my coaching days. And but obviously kind of what we were talking about, just watching some of those kids grow. Like they may start out as a little squirt like in 7th grade and not amount to much, but they work their tail off and they get stronger. And then in 8th grade they grow a little bit and they're getting, and then you see them in high school a few years later and they're starting on the varsity team, and they were just kind of like a participant, but they were one of the hardest working kids. So
and then they're playing running back for Boise State and then moving on.
That's one of them
for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, fondest memory probably more as a player than as a coach was football. Even though soccer was my sport, football, you felt like you're really going into battle. Mm-hmm. So like pre-game when our head coach, Coach Pappas, came rolling in and we're all silent, everyone's sitting on the bench. Like prior to that, we were all jumping and singing and rapping and yelling and doing all the things to prep. And then there's that moment where everyone's quiet and he comes in and we do our prayer and we all hold hands, and start marching out to the field. I just miss that camaraderie, like that feeling that, okay, these are my guys. We got each other's back. Yeah. And there's like turds on that team I didn't like, but in that moment of time, if I was a receiver and they're a lineman or something, I was looking up to them, like there's that moment of just camaraderie is what I miss most, at least as a player and as a coach, feeling like I was a part of that process as well.
Yeah, and maybe to kind of tie things back a little bit to where we were, talking about events earlier, that's something when I got out of coaching a few years ago, I wondered how I would adapt. First I like to stay busy. I'm not a person that I sit around often. So when I got out of coaching, I thought, well, what am I going to do now? Because I just got about 45 hours a week back. And then so started talking to you guys about getting more involved with events, and I did a couple before that. But then once I started really getting invested with it, it's kind of the same thing. Like we've got a team that looks up to each other, goes out with each other. There's moments right before all right, here we go. This is going to be a good day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm appreciative of that still part of a team setting. It cool. Keeps things fun.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Some days are better than others,
That's life.
But so this weekend, I saw you post, Jeb, on, I think, Twitter. It looks like you got a big collection from a estate sale.
I did. I had a good little estate sale run on Good Friday. It was a sale that I saw on Wednesday that was going to happen, and they were going to do like a pre-sale on Thursday. I'm like, oh, well, crap, I got school. I can't go down to Dallas and go to this particular sale, so I waited till Friday morning to go. But luckily, they still had a lot of stuff there, so... Yeah, I collect Lone Star beer, Pearl beer, like memorabilia, stuff like that. So this particular, I guess, sale was from an estate of a former bar owner in Dallas, and so they had a ton of like signage and bottles. And when I say a lot of bottles and cans, they had like boxes of bottles and cans. So I was digging through there. There's a bunch of other people digging through, but everyone's kind of looking for their own brand, and so a lot of the Lone Star and Pearl stuff was left behind in Shiner, so I grabbed it. So it's a good day. Yeah. definitely got a lot of collections going, as you know.
Well, it's crazy because, of course, I always talk about my son Luke, but he's Easter. Got to buy him some toys. You know, the Easter Bunny bought him some toys. Made him. I don't know what they do with that, but he's into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I love.
Back.
And so it kind of got me thinking when I saw your post, and of course with him liking the same toys I like what are some things that y'all collected as kids? Toys, whatever. Like, yeah. I mean, everyone knows you're Junkie Trinket. Go follow him on Twitter, Instagram if you can. Jeb and TexStyles as well as his artist handle. But what toys, things, knickknacks, things did y'all maybe collect growing up?
I guess like every young boy, I was big into baseball cards. So I've got a pretty big card collection. I think still at my mom's house. It didn't make the move with me, but got big into that, and collected the Beckett, the magazines that went along with it, where you could find the value. I know that the two big guys I collected. If I came across Bo Jackson or Craig Biggio, those are my cards. I grew up an Astro fan. Now that I've lived here for almost 20 years, I'm a Ranger now, but I love collecting those guys.
Rangers beat the Cubs this weekend.
They ended up going 2-3
well,
or
they
2-1.
beat them one time.
Oh, it was one? Oh, that's
one out of 3.
Well, that was the one day I
looked.
looked at the score. So, yeah.
Come on now.
Sorry. Bo knows baseball. I'll go back to that. So, you said Bo, and who was the other one?
Craig Biggio.
Craig Biggio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Must be an Astros fan.
Yeah, I grew up, loved them. I grew up maybe just under 2 hours away from Houston. So, we can remember those days where everybody put on your Little League uniform and you go with your teammates to the game.
Yeah.
We did that quite a bit. And then being at school at A&M, it was just over an hour away. So my roommates and I, we'd go quite a bit. Got some great memories. The year with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire chasing the home run record. We'd get to the stadium super early. I really think the tickets were either $3 or $5 at the gate to go in, and you sat in the outfield. So we would be front row, left field. We're going to get some home run balls today.
Yeah. And the dome, right?
Yeah, at the old Astrodome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so grew up loving the Astros. I always thought it was cool with Biggio because he went from catcher to second to center field. So he made that transition, and just the leadership to be able to do something like that, and obviously the athletic ability to do it. I always thought that was, I can't think of anybody else that's done something like that.
I was a big Jeff Bagwell fan, so that was, him, Biggio, those were cards I like collecting.
The Killer Bees.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm the same as Brandon. When I was little, I guess I started collecting baseball cards probably in 1981 or so. We lived in Pampa, Texas, and I just remember it kind of being more of a bribe type thing. Like my parents would be like, "Hey, you need a haircut. If you get a haircut, we'll buy you a couple packs of baseball cards." And we're like, "Okay." So my brother and I would go get our haircuts or whatever, and that's back in the time where we could kind of like had a little bit of free reign. I think I was like in 3rd grade. My brother was like he's a few years younger than me. He might have been like in 1st grade or something. But my parents would like let us ride our bikes to like at the time like the drugstore. It would be like a CVS today. So we'd actually ride our bikes to I was like in 4th grade, and we go get baseball cards. Like 35 cents a pack or something, and they'd have the gum in there and everything. But that's really when we started collecting baseball cards. We keep them in shoe boxes. I'd organize them all by team. I love baseball cards. And then another cool thing I collected in Pampa, since it's way up in West Texas, the oil field business was a big deal. So like every oil field company had like stickers. And so I started collecting oil field stickers, and I still have that collection today. But like my dad like brought his typewriter home from school, and like we typed out a letter, and like we would write letters to like the different companies and mail them off. We'd get their address in the yellow pages, and we'd write them off, and we'd tell them we were collecting stickers, and a lot of them would send us stickers back. It was really cool. So I still have a really cool collection of like oil field stickers from my days in Pampa. That's cool. But yeah, baseball cards I still collect a little bit here and there, but that was like a big deal for me. And then the oil field stickers. I used to collect all kinds of stuff. I was always junking and
used to.
Yeah.
I still. Yeah. Now I just have a little bit of money to spend, and so now the collections have gotten a little bit bigger. But
and they have beer labels on them.
Some of them do, yeah.
Yeah. Baseball cards for me, for sure. I would do that with my father and my sister, which I hate because now my sister and I are fighting who's going to get that collection one day. Pogs. I don't know if y'all remember what those were.
Well, I was teaching when Pogs were popular, so I had to deal with kids bringing those to school.
But I think I was probably the worst collector because I would collect G.I. Joes and starting lineups. And as we all know, it's only valuable if you leave it in the box.
I was going to say.
I'd get it and we'd keep it in the box. But 2, 3, 4 days go by, I'm like, man, I'm going to play with that.
Yeah.
And I'll tear it open. But we still have all that collection. I mean, we had a house fire when I was in first grade, and that was like the box of toys that the firemen brought me was a box of my G.I. Joes and my Hot Wheels. So they actually went back in there and like gathered them all up.
Holy cow.
So I still have those. I don't know how they didn't melt, but and I would put these G.I. Joes up and like play with black cats and like make little wars with them. One of the worst stories with Chase, my best friend growing up, we were like 5th or 6th grade. Like maybe 6th grade, I don't know, but we're still playing with G.I. Joes. And his brother came in from college and made really fun of us. And I never played with him a day again after that.
I'm sure the game in 5th grade that you were playing is a little bit different than when you were a little kid, though. Like I said, black cats or the little M60s or something. The battles got better.
And we were shooting with Nerf guns and fireworks, and it was a little bit more fun. But I was a horrible collector, of course, but I had a good time doing that, and it kind of taught me a lot. Just understanding money, and because my parents would give me so much money, I would have so much money to go out and buy something. And I valued enough that I would, save money just to do that. So it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I grew up in Southeast Texas, Lake Sam Rayburn. So I did a lot of fishing and was always in the woods. So I don't know if you'd call it a collection, but kind of going back to my organize and list how I got into that. My tackle box or my little notebook of fishing lures, I'd have my watermelon red worms or whatever chartreuse crawdaddies or whatever, and I always had those organized by color and what type of lure it was. And so
would you make tallies of which one had the most hits on and stuff like that?
Yeah.
To rank them?
I don't, nothing written down on paper, but you definitely, you get used to it. Okay, hey, it's spring. It just rained. So I need to use this color. All right, we're going to fish in a creek, so we need to use maybe a crawfish instead of a worm or whatever. So that's a whole other thing we could go down. But I don't know if you call that a collection, but I had quite a few.
I just wish we had the foresight to see. I mean, because I used to have all the Star Wars figures like from the 70s, like when the movie first came out.
Yeah.
If you just thought, okay, if my parents, they were just like $1.50 each, or maybe not even that much. You just think like if you just went in there and bought, 4 or 5 Luke Skywalkers and just kept 4 of them in a box, and you just played with one, you could be retired by now
for sure.
with some of that stuff. Yeah. Looking back, but you just never know. I don't know.
Well, we still have a little bit of fun. You'll text me or I'll text you. Not often anymore about when Walmart or Target will get some baseball cards. Yeah. So I still hustle that a little bit. I haven't put them on eBay. I'm still holding them on. Hopefully they keep their value.
I got a few boxes myself.
So, all this said, I hope y'all have been able to get to know a little bit about Brandon. For 8 years, Jeb and I, with maybe his daughter Meredith, Carrie, his wife, my wife Hillary, a few of our team members, we would go hustle events. So it's great to have Brandon with us. Being the brains behind it now, it's great to know you're getting that warehouse put together, getting that product ready. It's been a significant blessing for me, and I know Jeb as well. But I think there's one question right now in this day and age, and not to get too political at the moment, but I think we all know there's a lot of turds out there going after the education world, politicians that don't know what they're doing, that wants to be trying to be on school boards and things. And because of some of this stuff, there's a lot of teachers trying to figure out, man, like, how did those guys do it? Like they left education, they're hustling money. We all have a few friends here and there that are out in the corporate world now living life. Is there any advice, tips, thoughts that we all three as current teachers, former teachers, coaches can lay out there for other aspiring teachers that want maybe not to even leave the education field, because I don't want to promote that, because we want good teachers to remain in the field for our kids, but maybe a side hustle, something that allows them to still have the best of both worlds, enjoy life, take care of their family, but have a good time.
Wow. Well, I think the power of the internet has opened so many doors for so many people. I mean, there's to me that I think there's so many ways that you can make extra income now than you couldn't, like, say 10 years ago. I think there's been so many different deals. I mean, selling on Etsy, creating your own crafts. There's now where you can, if you're an English teacher, there's things you can do with copywriting. You can get on a site like Fiverr, and you can write copy for people, for certain amounts of money. You can, I mean, there's just so many different things you can do outside. Whether it's proofreading things, small design type jobs and things that you could take. So yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of looking for a side hustle. Sometimes to supplement maybe what they're getting paid as a teacher, and I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think you just need to kind of find your niche and what you're strong at, and see if there's something out there online that can help you. But I mean, shoot, with the economy that we're in right now, there's a lot of businesses struggling just to find those little part-time type job type stuff. So I think there's work out there.
Yeah. And Brandon, throw out him, so you don't own this business, but you also have, and this is briefly, but so you have a little plug out there with a little bit of your barbecue hustle. Kind of share a little bit about that, and just maybe your thoughts about just getting plugged in with someone else's business like ours to do what you're doing.
Yeah, so the barbecue stuff I was doing is actually kicked off right with the kind of, I guess, the COVID shutdown. I've always barbecued or cooked, I guess. But my dad was a firefighter, my grandfather was a firefighter, and so they were kind of cook in the fire station, I guess. And so they'd come home and do the same thing. I got into it that way. I've done chili cook-offs. I've kind of done some different things like that, just out of enjoyment. So once things kind of started shutting down, I would just barbecue out in our driveway, and neighbors started coming up and asking. So next thing I know, I'm sending out emails to the neighborhood and other friends I know, and hey, I'm doing some brisket and pork belly this weekend. Anybody interested? And I'd always seem to kind of sell enough exactly of what I was throwing on the pit, so it worked out well.
Yeah, it's good too.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Well, when Hillary and I had Zach, you were kind enough to drop by some food, and it was awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's you asked the question about what could you find, and you kind of go back to your why of why are you looking for a second job? Is it because you need the money? Is it because you need to fill your bucket with something you enjoy? And that was something I enjoyed. Just being out. Usually, kind of people would come through a little bit, hang out, maybe have a drink or two, and then they'd leave, and somebody else would come. So I was getting to hang out with friends, either doing the neighborhood barbecues. I've cooked for a couple of. I've done retirement parties. I barbecued for Coach K whenever he retired from Frisco ISD. I've had gender reveal parties. I've got another friend that they own a wedding venue downtown, and we started doing kind of dinner parties where I would either do, and that was a little bit different. Might would have barbecue, but it was more like steak or salmon or something like that, and just, I don't know. It was fun. So my why was I got to unplug and just cook and hang out for a little while.
Right.
It's the same thing with my hustle with Tumbleweed is, there's times where it's a lot of work, but I get genuine enjoyment out of it. So that's kind of my why. It does supplement, but it's a time to fill my bucket, if you will.
And I'll throw this out there. And I'll let Jeb have any final thoughts to this, but you had never hesitated to ask, hey, is this possible? Is this possible, right? And I say that because Jeb and I, and of course now you, if there's any teachers out there that are extremely hard workers, want to hustle, are trustworthy, we're always looking to even kind of grow our team so that we can expand and conquer more events. But we don't know others might be interested, but they want to work with us, but they're afraid to ask. That's the beautiful thing about with what you did is you asked and you got plugged in, and now you're as much a part of our team as anyone on our team. So, any of those teachers are listening, again, hard work, you got to check all the right boxes because we got to have someone that we can trust. But I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be a part of the team.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Look forward to keeping it rock and rolling.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, thanks for all you do, Brandon. We appreciate it. And I guess this is a public service announcement if anyone's listening, Yeah, if you want to come hustle with us sometime, reach out. We'll see if it's a good fit. We can put you at it. We can start you folding some shirts somewhere and see what happens.
Let's work your way up.
Get the grind. So anyway, I think that was a good convo today. You guys have a great week. I think we're going to wrap it up, and maybe we'll see you at one of our events coming up in the next few weeks.
Let's go.
Adios.
See you guys.